The notification sound on my phone cut through the quiet evening like a knife. I was sitting in my living room, a beer in one hand and the TV remote in the other, finally enjoying the peace I'd fought so hard to achieve. 1 year of freedom from Vanessa's chaos, 1 year of rebuilding my life from the wreckage she'd left behind. I glanced at the screen and felt my stomach drop. Her name still had that effect on me, even after all this time. Vanessa. We need to talk. Urgently. This affects both of us. I stared at the message for a long moment, memories flooding back. The late nights when she'd come home smelling like another man's cologne. The lies that rolled off her tongue so easily, I wondered if she even remembered what truth looked like. The stack of divorce papers she'd thrown at my chest that final night, laughing as she walked out. My phone buzzed again. Emily's name appeared, and I smiled despite myself. Emily. Still on for dinner tomorrow? I found this amazing little Italian place downtown. Emily. Vanessa's younger sister, the one who'd shown up at my door with takeout and genuine concern when my world fell apart. The woman who'd helped me remember what loyalty looked like, what it felt like to be truly seen and appreciated. I typed my response to Vanessa first. Another time. I'm busy, with your sister. Then I replied to Emily, can't wait. Pick you up at 7? The satisfaction of that first message was immediate and intoxicating. For a year, Vanessa had been telling anyone who'd listened that I was boring, controlling, not man enough to keep her interested. She'd paraded her conquests around town like trophies, making sure I heard about each one through mutual friends who thought they were being helpful. Well, now she could hear about mine. My phone exploded with notifications within minutes. Vanessa was calling, texting, sending message after message. I turned it face down and took another sip of my beer, feeling lighter than I had in months. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. My good mood evaporated as I scrolled through them. How could you do this to me? Emily doesn't know what kind of man you really are. I'm going to tell everyone the truth about you. You're going to regret this, Rick. But it was the voicemail that made my blood run cold. Vanessa's voice shaking with rage. You think you're so smart, don't you? Dating my sister, trying to hurt me? Well, guess what, Rick? I've been planning something for months, something that's going to destroy everything you've built. And now that you've chosen to humiliate me publicly, I'm going to enjoy watching it all burn down. I sat on the edge of my bed, fully awake now, my mind racing. What could she have been planning? What did she know that I didn't? My phone rang. Emily's name appeared, and I answered immediately. Rick? Her voice was strained, worried. Vanessa just left my apartment. She was screaming about you, about us. She said some terrible things. What's going on? What kind of things? I asked, already dreading the answer. She said you were dangerous, that you'd been stalking her, harassing her. She said she had proof that you were trying to ruin her life, and that I was helping you do it. Emily's voice cracked. Rick, she had papers with her, legal documents. She said she was going to make sure everyone knew what kind of man you really were. My heart hammered against my ribs. Emily, listen to me. Whatever she told you, whatever she's planning, none of it is true. You know me. You know I would never. I know, she said quickly. I told her that. I told her she was crazy if she thought I'd believe her lies about you. But Rick, she looked different, desperate, like she was capable of anything. After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen, staring at my coffee and trying to piece together what Vanessa might be planning. She'd always been vindictive, but this felt bigger, more calculated. The mention of legal documents made my stomach churn. I called my friend Pete, an ex-cop who now worked private security. If anyone would know how to handle this situation, it would be him. Rick, my man, Pete's gravelly voice came through the phone. What's got you calling so early? I filled him in on everything, the messages, the threats, Emily's visit from Vanessa. Pete listened without interrupting, which I'd learned meant he was taking it seriously. Sounds like your ex-wife is gearing up for war, he said finally. Legal documents could mean anything, restraining order, harassment charges, defamation suit. With her connections in real estate, she probably knows lawyers who take her case just for the publicity. What do I do? First, you document everything. Save every message, every voicemail, every interaction. Second, you get ahead of this. If she's planning to spread lies about you, you need people who know the truth to speak up first. I thought about our mutual friends, the people who'd watched our marriage crumble. Most of them had stayed neutral, not wanting to take sides. But neutrality wouldn't help me if Vanessa was about to launch a full-scale character assassination. Pete, there's something else. I've been seeing Emily, Vanessa's sister. It's been going on for a few months now. Pete whistled low. Brother, you really know how to complicate things, don't you? How serious is it? Serious enough that I told Vanessa about it when she wanted to talk. Serious enough that I'm not going to let her destroy it with her lies. Then you better be ready to fight for it. And Rick, whatever you're thinking of doing, make sure it's legal. Don't give her ammunition to use against you. After hanging up with Pete, I called my IT consultant friend Sarah. If Vanessa was planning something big, there might be digital evidence of it. Sarah had helped me secure my accounts after the divorce, and I trusted her completely. Rick, how's life treating you? Sarah's cheerful voice was exactly what I needed to hear. I explained the situation, and Sarah's tone immediately became serious. Rick, I can help you protect yourself, but I can't help you spy on her. That's illegal, and it would hurt your case if this goes to court. I'm not asking you to hack her accounts. I just want to make sure mine are secure, and I want to document everything properly. If she's planning to accuse me of harassment or stalking, I need to prove I haven't been doing either. Smart thinking. Bring me your devices this afternoon. I'll make sure everything is locked down tight, and I'll help you set up proper documentation for any future interactions with her. By noon, I had a plan. I would be proactive instead of reactive. If Vanessa wanted to play dirty, I'd make sure everyone knew exactly who she really was. The coffee shop where I'd agreed to meet Jake Morrison felt like neutral territory. Jake had been our mutual friend during the marriage, someone who'd tried to stay out of the drama when things went south. He was also connected to half the professional community in town through his marketing firm. Jake arrived 10 minutes late, looking uncomfortable. He'd always been the peacemaker in our group, the guy who tried to smooth over conflicts before they exploded. Today, his usual easy smile was nowhere to be seen. Rick, good to see you, man, he said, sliding into the booth across from me. Though I have to admit, I'm not sure why we're meeting. Things have been complicated since the divorce. I got straight to the point. Jake, Vanessa is planning something. She's been making threats, talking about legal action, spreading lies about me harassing her. I need you to know the truth before she gets to you with her version. Jake shifted uncomfortably. Look, Rick, I like you both. I don't want to get in the middle of... You're already in the middle, I interrupted. She's going to call you, probably today. She's going to tell you I'm dangerous, that I've been stalking her, that I'm trying to ruin her life. And when she does, I need you to remember who I actually am. I pulled out my phone and showed him the messages Vanessa had sent, the threats, the voicemails. Jake's eyes widened as he read. Jesus, Rick, this is intense. What triggered all this? I told her I was dating Emily. Jake's eyebrows shot up. Emily? Her sister Emily? Dude, that's what? Wrong? Emily is an adult. She can date whoever she wants. And after what Vanessa put me through, after all the men she paraded around town, she doesn't get to have an opinion about my love life. Jake was quiet for a long moment, reading through the messages again. You're right. This is way over the line. But Rick, dating her sister, that's going to look like revenge to a lot of people. Maybe because it is revenge, I said, surprised by my own honesty. Not the relationship itself. What Emily and I have is real. But telling Vanessa about it? Yeah, that was revenge, and it felt good. Jake laughed despite himself. I can't say I blame you. She put you through hell. He looked up from the phone. What do you need from me? Just remember this conversation when she calls. Remember that I came to you with documentation, with evidence. Remember that I'm not hiding anything or asking you to lie for me. I'm just asking you to tell the truth. We talked for another hour, and Jake filled me in on the local gossip network. Vanessa had been busy over the past year, not just with men, but with building alliances. She'd positioned herself as the victim of a bitter divorce, the successful woman whose boring husband couldn't handle her ambition. She's got Linda Morrison eating out of her hand, Jake said, referring to his own wife. And you know Linda talks to everyone. If Vanessa's planning a smear campaign, she's got the infrastructure for it. That afternoon, I met with Sarah at her office. Her IT consulting firm occupied the top floor of a downtown building, all glass and chrome, and the kind of modern efficiency that made me feel slightly out of place in my jeans and polo shirt. All right, let's see what we're working with, Sarah said, connecting my phone to her computer. First things first, we're going to document everything she sent you, create timestamps, verify the metadata. If this goes legal, you want bulletproof evidence. As Sarah worked, I told her about my conversation with Jake. She nodded approvingly. Smart move. In situations like this, the first story people hear is usually the one they believe. You're getting ahead of her narrative. Sarah, can you tell if someone has been monitoring my accounts, my emails, my social media? She frowned at her screen. Why do you ask? Something about her threats. She seemed to know things, like she'd been watching me somehow. Sarah's fingers flew across the keyboard. After several minutes, she looked up with a grim expression. Rick, I'm finding some anomalies. Logins from IP addresses that don't match your usual locations, some email forwarding rules that you didn't set up. It looks like someone has been monitoring your accounts. My blood ran cold. How is that possible? Did you ever share passwords with Vanessa during the marriage? I thought back, and my stomach dropped. Yeah, we had a shared computer, and I used the same passwords for everything back then, but I changed them all after the divorce. Not soon enough, apparently. Look at this. Sarah pointed to her screen. Someone set up forwarding rules on your email account 8 months ago. Every email you send or receive gets copied to an anonymous account. Can you trace it? I can try, but it's going to take time. What I can do right now is lock down everything, change all your passwords, enable two-factor authentication on every account. But Rick, if she's been reading your emails for 8 months, she knows about Emily. She knows about your job, your clients, your finances. She knows everything. The violation felt worse than the original betrayal. At least during the marriage, I'd known she was cheating. This was different. This was systematic, calculated invasion of my privacy. There's more, Sarah said quietly. She's been taking screenshots, saving copies of your private conversations. If she wanted to take things out of context, make you look bad, she's got plenty of material to work with. I thought about all the emails I'd sent over the past 8 months. Conversations with Emily about our relationship, complaints about Vanessa to friends, private thoughts I'd shared with my lawyer during the divorce proceedings. All of it compromised. What's my legal recourse? Probably not much, unless you can prove she accessed your accounts without permission after the divorce was finalized. And even then, it's a civil matter, not criminal. But Rick, this gives you something too. What do you mean? Sarah smiled grimly. If she's been illegally monitoring your accounts, that's a violation of federal computer fraud laws. It might not be enough to put her in jail, but it's definitely enough to destroy her credibility if she tries to take you to court. That evening, I called Emily and asked her to come over. I needed to tell her everything, and I needed to do it in person. She arrived with Thai takeout and a bottle of wine, her usual solution to stressful days. You look terrible, she said, setting the food on my kitchen counter. What did you find out? I told her everything. The monitoring, the screenshots, the extent of Vanessa's surveillance. Emily's face went white as I explained how her sister had been violating my privacy for months. She's been reading our emails? Emily's voice was barely above a whisper. Our private conversations about everything? Everything, I confirmed. Sarah found forwarding rules going back 8 months. Every email I've sent or received, including the ones between us. Emily sank into a chair, her hands shaking. Rick, some of those emails were intimate, personal, things I would never want her to see. I know, I'm sorry. I should have been more careful. This isn't your fault, Emily's voice rose, anger replacing shock. This is sick. This is God. I don't even know what this is. Who does something like this? We ate dinner in relative silence, both of us processing the implications. Finally, Emily spoke up. What are we going to do? We're going to beat her at her own game, I said. She wants to play dirty? Fine. But she's not the only one who knows how to gather information. Emily looked at me carefully. What does that mean? It means I'm done being the victim. I'm done letting her control the narrative. If she wants a war, she's got one. Pete arrived at my house the next morning with coffee and a grim expression. I'd called him after Emily left, asking for help with what I was starting to think of as McKee intelligence gathering. If Vanessa had been spying on me for months, it was time to return the favor. Legally. All right, brother, let's talk strategy, Pete said, settling into my kitchen chair. Your ex-wife has been playing a long game, but she made some mistakes. The illegal monitoring Sarah found? That's leverage. But you need more. What kind of more? You need to know what she's planning, who she's talking to, what story she's spreading. And you need witnesses to her actual behavior, not just her version of events. Pete pulled out a small notebook, the kind he'd used when he was still a cop. Tell me about her routine. Where does she go? Who does she see? What's her schedule like? I thought about what I knew of Vanessa's life post-divorce. She works at Morrison Real Estate downtown. She goes to that trendy gym on 5th Street, Iron Paradise, I think it's called. She's always posting on social media about her nightlife, usually at that upscale bar, the Meridian. Good. What about friends? Who's in her inner circle these days? Her assistant at work, Gina something. They're always together, and she's been hanging around with Linda Morrison, Jake's wife. Linda loves drama, and Vanessa's been feeding her plenty of it. Pete made notes. Here's what we're going to do. You're going to start showing up in public places where she might be, not following her, not stalking her, just being visible, living your life openly. When she sees you happy, especially with Emily, it's going to make her crazy. Crazy people make mistakes. That sounds like baiting her. It is baiting her, but it's legal baiting. You have every right to go to restaurants, bars, public events. If she can't handle seeing you in public, that's her problem, not yours. Over the next week, Emily and I made ourselves very visible around town. We went to dinner at the Meridian, the same upscale bar where Vanessa liked to hold court. We attended a charity fundraiser where half the real estate community would be present. We even joined the gym where Vanessa worked out, Iron Paradise. The reactions were immediate and satisfying. At the Meridian, I watched Vanessa's face go white when she saw us walk in. She was holding court at her usual corner table, surrounded by her real estate friends, but her animated conversation died mid-sentence when she spotted Emily's hand in mine. "Rick," Emily whispered. "She's staring at us." "Let her stare," I said, guiding Emily to a table with a clear view of Vanessa's group. "We're not doing anything wrong." Throughout dinner, I could feel Vanessa's eyes on us. Every laugh Emily and I shared, every intimate conversation, every casual touch seemed to drive Vanessa further toward the edge. By the time we left, she was gripping her wine glass so tightly I thought it might shatter. The charity fundraiser was even better. It was a silent auction for the local children's hospital, the kind of event where the city's professional class gathered to see and be seen. Emily looked stunning in a black dress, and I'd actually bought a decent suit for the occasion. Vanessa arrived with her usual entourage, but I noticed something different. She kept looking around nervously, checking her phone, whispering urgently to Gina. When she finally spotted us across the room, her carefully composed facade cracked for just a moment. "She looks rattled," Emily observed, following my gaze. "Good. Rattled people make poor decisions." We worked the room methodically, greeting people I'd known during the marriage, introducing Emily as my girlfriend. The reactions were telling. Some people seemed genuinely happy to see me doing well. Others looked uncomfortable, clearly having heard Vanessa's version of our relationship. But the real test came when Linda Morrison approached us near the silent auction tables. "Rick, how nice to see you," Linda said, her voice carrying that particular tone women use when they're fishing for information. "And Emily, right? Vanessa's mentioned you." "I'm sure she has," Emily replied smoothly. "All good things, I hope." Linda's smile faltered slightly. "Of course. You know, it's just so interesting how things work out sometimes." "What do you mean?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "Oh, you know, families, relationships. Sometimes people end up in the most unexpected places." Emily stepped closer to me, her hand finding mine. "I don't think there's anything unexpected about two people finding happiness together, do you?" Linda's eyes narrowed slightly. "No, I suppose not, though timing can be complicated." "The timing is perfect," I said firmly. "Emily and I are very happy together." As Linda walked away, clearly frustrated that she hadn't gotten the reaction she wanted, Emily squeezed my hand. "That was Vanessa's spy, wasn't it?" "One of them. She'll report back everything we said, how we looked, how we acted, which is exactly what we want." But it was the gym where things really escalated. Iron Paradise was Vanessa's territory, the place where she'd built her post-divorce identity as a strong, independent woman who didn't need anyone. Walking in there with Emily was a declaration of war. The gym was everything I'd expected: expensive equipment, beautiful people, and an atmosphere that screamed exclusivity. Emily and I signed up for a couples training session, making sure to book it during peak hours when Vanessa would be most likely to see us. We were 20 minutes into our workout when she appeared. I was spotting Emily on the bench press when I heard the sharp intake of breath behind me. "What the hell are you doing here?" I turned to find Vanessa standing 3 feet away, wearing designer workout clothes and an expression of pure fury. Several other gym members had stopped their workouts to watch. "Working out," I said calmly. "Same as you." "This is my gym, Rick. I've been coming here for 2 years. And now we're coming here too. It's a public business, Vanessa. They take anyone who can afford the membership fee." Her eyes shifted to Emily, who had sat up on the bench and was watching the exchange with obvious discomfort. "Emily, what are you doing? Do you have any idea what kind of man you're with?" "I know exactly what kind of man I'm with," Emily replied, standing up. "The question is, do you know what kind of woman you are?" The gym had gone completely quiet. Even the music seemed to have stopped. Vanessa's face flushed red, and for a moment I thought she might actually take a swing at her sister. Instead, she stepped closer, lowering her voice to a whisper that somehow carried across the entire room. "You have no idea what he's capable of, Emily. No idea what he did to me during our marriage. But you're going to find out." Is that a threat? I asked, pulling out my phone. Because I'm recording this conversation, and I'm pretty sure everyone here is listening. Vanessa's eyes went wide as she realized how public her outburst had become. She looked around the gym, seeing the stairs, the phones that were now pointed in her direction. "This isn't over," she hissed, grabbing her gym bag and storming toward the exit. As soon as she was gone, the gym erupted in whispered conversations. I helped Emily gather her things, both of us shaking slightly from the adrenaline. "That was intense," Emily said as we walked to the car. "That was perfect," I replied. "She just threatened you in front of 20 witnesses, and half of them got it on video." That night, Pete called with news. "Your ex-wife has been busy," he said. "She met with a lawyer this afternoon. My contact at the courthouse says she's filing for a restraining order tomorrow morning." "On what grounds?" "Harassment, stalking, threatening behavior. She's claiming you've been following her, showing up at places she frequents, trying to intimidate her." I felt a moment of panic before remembering Sarah's documentation. She's the one who's been monitoring my accounts. We have proof of that. "Yeah, but that's not how this works, brother. She files first, you respond later. By the time you get to present your evidence, the damage is done. A restraining order goes on your record, affects your job, your reputation. So what do I do? You get ahead of it. Tomorrow morning, before she files, you go to the police and report the illegal monitoring. You file a complaint about her threatening behavior. You make sure your version of events is on record first." I hung up and immediately called Sarah. "I need everything you found about the monitoring documented and ready for the police by tomorrow morning." "Already done," Sarah said. "I've been expecting this call. Rick, there's something else you should know. I did some digging into that anonymous email account where your messages were being forwarded." "What did you find?" "It's registered to a fake name, but the payment method traces back to Vanessa's credit card. We can prove she set it up, we can prove she's been accessing it regularly, and we can prove she's been downloading your private emails for months." "That's illegal, right?" Completely illegal. Computer fraud, violation of privacy, possibly even identity theft, depending on how she used the information. "Rick, this could destroy her real estate license, maybe even result in criminal charges." For the first time since this whole mess started, I felt like I had the upper hand. The police station at 7 in the morning was exactly as depressing as I'd expected. Fluorescent lights, stale coffee, and the kind of institutional beige that seemed designed to drain hope from anyone who walked through the doors. But I was there first, which was what mattered. Detective Sarah Chen, no relation to my IT friend Sarah, was a compact woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and the kind of no-nonsense attitude that came from years of dealing with domestic disputes. She listened to my story without interruption, occasionally making notes in a file that seemed to grow thicker by the minute. "So you're telling me your ex-wife has been illegally monitoring your email accounts for 8 months and you have documentation to prove it?" she asked, reviewing the printed evidence Sarah had prepared. "Complete documentation, IP addresses, timestamps, the works. She set up forwarding rules to copy every email I sent or received to an account she created using false information." Detective Chen studied the papers carefully. "This is pretty sophisticated stuff. Most people going through a bitter divorce don't have this level of technical knowledge." "She had help," I said. "I don't know who, but someone with IT skills set this up for her." "And you believe she's planning to file a restraining order against you today?" "My source is reliable. She's going to claim I've been harassing her, following her, showing up at places she frequents." Detective Chen leaned back in her chair. "Have you been showing up at places she frequents?" I'd been expecting this question. "Yes, but not to harass her. I've been living my life, going to public places with my girlfriend. If my ex-wife happens to be at the same restaurant or gym, that's not illegal." "Your girlfriend being her sister probably complicates things?" "My relationship with Emily started months after the divorce was final. We're both adults, and Vanessa doesn't get to control who we date." Detective Chen made more notes. "I'm going to need to speak with your girlfriend, your IT consultant, and anyone else who can verify your version of events. But based on what you've shown me, there's enough here for a formal complaint about the computer monitoring." "What happens next?" "We investigate. We interview witnesses. We determine if charges are warranted. But Mr. Anders, I need you to understand something. This kind of domestic situation can escalate quickly. If your ex-wife feels cornered, if she thinks her reputation or career is at risk, she might do something desperate." I left the police station feeling cautiously optimistic. I'd gotten my version of events on record first, and I had evidence to back up my claims. But Detective Chen's warning echoed in my head as I drove to work. My optimism lasted exactly 3 hours. I was in the middle of a client meeting when my assistant knocked on my office door, looking uncomfortable. "Rick, there are 2 police officers here to see you." My client, a nervous accountant who was already paranoid about computer security, went pale. Is everything all right? I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding, I said, trying to project confidence I didn't feel. Could we reschedule for this afternoon? The officers were professional but firm. Vanessa had indeed filed for a restraining order, claiming I'd been stalking her, threatening her, and using her sister to gather information about her personal life. The temporary order was effective immediately, pending a hearing in 3 days. What does this mean exactly? I asked, reading through the legal documents. It means you need to stay at least 500 feet away from Ms. Anders at all times, the older officer explained. No contact, direct or indirect. No going to places where you know she'll be. What about my girlfriend? Emily is Vanessa's sister. The officers exchanged glances. The order doesn't prevent you from seeing your girlfriend, but if your girlfriend is with her sister, you need to leave immediately. After they left, I called Pete. She beat me to it, I said. I'm officially a stalker as of 2 hours ago. Shit. Okay, this is bad, but not catastrophic. You've got your hearing in 3 days, right? That's when you present your evidence, so show the judge what she's really been up to. Pete, this is going to be in the newspaper. Local IT consultant served with restraining order. My business is built on trust. If clients think I'm some kind of stalker, then we make sure everyone knows the truth before the hearing. Rick, you've got evidence of illegal activity on her part. You've got witnesses to her threatening behavior. You've got documentation going back months. She may have gotten the first punch in, but you're going to win the fight. I spent the rest of the day dealing with damage control. I called my biggest clients personally, explaining the situation before they heard it from someone else. I contacted Jake and asked him to spread the word through his network about what was really happening. I even called my lawyer, who'd handled the divorce, to make sure I was prepared for the hearing. But it was the call from Emily that broke my heart. Rick, I'm so sorry, she said, crying. Vanessa came to my school today. She made a scene in front of my principal, claiming you were using me to stalk her. She said I was in danger, that I didn't know what kind of man you really were. What did your principal say? He asked me to take a few days off while things get sorted out. He didn't suspend me, but... Rick, I teach children. If parents think I'm involved with someone dangerous... Emily, I'm going to fix this. I promise you, I'm going to make this right. How? She's got a restraining order. She's telling everyone who'll listen that you're dangerous. Half the people in town probably believe her by now. That night, I sat in my kitchen with Pete and Sarah, planning our counterattack. The hearing was in 3 days, and we needed to be ready. The key is documentation, my lawyer friend Sarah explained over speakerphone. You need to show a pattern of behavior on her part. The illegal monitoring, the threats, the manipulation. Make the judge see who's really the aggressor here. What about character witnesses? Pete asked. Absolutely. People who've seen her behavior, who can testify to her vindictive nature, but also people who can vouch for Rick's character. Sarah pulled out her laptop. I've been digging deeper into the email monitoring. Rick, she didn't just read your emails, she forwarded specific ones to other people. What do you mean? Remember that email you sent to your divorce lawyer complaining about her behavior during the custody negotiations? She forwarded that to Linda Morrison. And that private conversation you had with Emily about your feelings for her, she sent that to at least 3 people. The violation felt even worse knowing she'd shared my private thoughts with her friends. Can you prove that? I can prove everything, IP addresses, timestamps, recipient lists. She's been using your private emails as ammunition in her gossip campaign for months. That's character assassination, Pete said grimly, taking private conversations out of context, spreading them around town. That's not just illegal, it's malicious. We worked until midnight, building our case. By the time Pete and Sarah left, I had a stack of evidence that told a very different story than the one Vanessa had presented to the court. But I also had a growing sense that this was far from over. Vanessa had been planning this for months, maybe longer. The restraining order was just the opening move in a larger game. The next morning brought more bad news. Jake called to tell me that Vanessa had been busy spreading her version of events throughout the professional community. She's telling people you've been cyber-stalking her, that you hacked her accounts, that you're using Emily to get information about her personal life, Jake said. Linda Morrison is backing up her story, claiming she witnessed your threatening behavior at the charity event. That's completely backwards. She's the one who's been monitoring my accounts. I know that, and you know that, but the story that's spreading is different. Rick, you need to be prepared for the possibility that some people are going to believe her version. What about you? Do you believe her? Jake was quiet for a moment. I believe you, Rick. I've seen the evidence. I know your character. But I'm also going to have to be careful about how publicly I support you. My business depends on relationships with people who might be taking her side. After hanging up, I realized this was bigger than just a legal battle. This was a war for my reputation, my livelihood, my future with Emily. And Vanessa had gotten a significant head start. But I also realized something else. For the first time since our marriage ended, I was truly angry. Not hurt, not disappointed, but furious. She'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed, violated my privacy in ways that went beyond simple vindictiveness. If she wanted to destroy my life, she was going to have to go through me first. The courthouse on Thursday morning felt like a coliseum. I arrived early with my lawyer, David Kim, a sharp family law attorney who specialized in complex divorce cases. We'd spent the previous evening going through our evidence, preparing for what David called controlled warfare. "Remember," David said as we walked up the courthouse steps, "this isn't about winning or losing, it's about presenting facts. Let the evidence speak for itself, and don't let her bait you into an emotional response." Vanessa arrived 10 minutes later with her attorney, a woman I recognized from billboards around town. Margaret Walsh specialized in representing victims of domestic abuse, and her presence sent a clear message about the story Vanessa planned to tell. The hearing room was smaller than I'd expected, more like a conference room than a courtroom. Judge Patricia Williams was a stern-looking woman in her 50s who had a reputation for cutting through nonsense and focusing on facts. "This is a hearing on the temporary restraining order filed by Vanessa Anders against Richard Anders," Judge Williams began. "Ms. Walsh, present your client's case." Margaret Walsh stood and immediately launched into a narrative that painted me as a dangerous, obsessive ex-husband who couldn't accept that his marriage was over. "Your Honor, Mr. Anders has engaged in a systematic campaign of harassment against my client. He's been following her to restaurants, showing up at her gym, attending events where he knows she'll be present. He's enlisted her own sister in this campaign, using their relationship as a way to gather information about my client's personal life." She presented a timeline of incidents, every time Emily and I had been in the same place as Vanessa, framed as deliberate stalking rather than coincidental encounters. "Most disturbing, Your Honor, is the psychological manipulation. Mr. Anders began dating my client's sister specifically to cause emotional distress. He's turned family gatherings into opportunities for intimidation, made my client feel unsafe in her own community." Judge Williams listened without expression, occasionally making notes. When Walsh finished, she turned to David. "Mr. Kim, your response?" David stood and immediately changed the tone of the room. "Your Honor, this case isn't about stalking or harassment. It's about a woman who can't accept that her ex-husband has moved on with his life. More importantly, it's about illegal activity that Ms. Anders has been engaged in for the better part of a year." He presented our evidence methodically, printouts of the email forwarding rules, documentation of the illegal monitoring, timestamps showing months of privacy violations. Ms. Anders has been illegally accessing her ex-husband's email accounts since their divorce was finalized. She's been reading his private correspondence, copying his personal communications, and sharing intimate details of his life with third parties. Judge Williams leaned forward, studying the documents. "These are serious allegations, Mr. Kim. You're claiming Ms. Anders committed computer fraud?" "We're not claiming it, Your Honor. We're documenting it. Every email Mr. Anders sent or received for 8 months was copied to an account Ms. Anders created using false information. She's been conducting surveillance that would be illegal if performed by law enforcement without a warrant." David then called IT Sarah as a witness. Sarah explained the technical details in clear, simple language, showing how the monitoring system worked and providing evidence that Vanessa had accessed the forwarded emails hundreds of times. "In my professional opinion," Sarah testified, "this represents a sophisticated, long-term invasion of privacy. The perpetrator had detailed knowledge of Mr. Anders' personal life, his business communications, and his intimate relationships." When it was time for cross-examination, Margaret Walsh tried to suggest that I had somehow set up the monitoring myself to frame Vanessa, but Sarah's technical expertise made that argument look ridiculous. "Ms. Anders' credit card was used to pay for the anonymous email account," Sarah explained patiently. "The logins came from IP addresses associated with her home and office. The forwarding rules were created from her computer. There's no way Mr. Anders could have fabricated this evidence." Then David called Emily as a witness, and the temperature in the room shifted dramatically. Emily looked beautiful and composed as she took the stand, but I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands trembled slightly as she was sworn in. "Ms. Carter, how long have you known Mr. Anders?" "About 3 years. He was married to my sister when we first met." "When did your romantic relationship begin?" 4 months ago. We started spending time together after Vanessa and Rick's divorce was finalized." "Did Mr. Anders ever ask you to spy on your sister or gather information about her personal life?" "Never. Rick has never asked me about Vanessa's relationships, her work, or anything else. If anything, he tries to avoid talking about her. Has your sister made any threats regarding your relationship with Mr. Anders? Emily's voice was steady, but I could hear the pain underneath. Yes. She told me that dating Rick was a betrayal of our family. She said she would make sure everyone knew what kind of man he really was. She threatened to ruin both of our reputations if we didn't break up. Margaret Walsh's cross-examination was brutal. She tried to paint Emily as a naive woman being manipulated by a vindictive ex-husband, suggested that our relationship was part of a calculated revenge plot. Oh, isn't it true, Ms. Carter, that Mr. Anders pursued you specifically because you were his ex-wife's sister? No, that's not true. Rick was kind to me when I was going through a difficult time. Our relationship developed naturally. But you understand how this looks? Dating your sister's ex-husband just months after their divorce? Emily's composure finally cracked slightly. My sister cheated on Rick repeatedly during their marriage. She humiliated him publicly, told anyone who would listen that he wasn't good enough for her. She doesn't get to control who he dates now, and she doesn't get to control my life either. The courtroom was completely silent. Even Judge Williams looked surprised by the intensity of Emily's response. Finally, it was my turn to testify. David led me through the timeline of events, focusing on the evidence rather than emotions. Mr. Anders, did you ever threaten your ex-wife? No, never. Did you ever follow her or deliberately show up at places to intimidate her? No. Emily and I went to public places as a couple. If Vanessa happened to be there, that was coincidence, not planning. How did you discover the illegal monitoring of your email accounts? I explained how Sarah had found the forwarding rules, how we'd traced the anonymous account back to Vanessa's credit card, how we'd discovered she'd been sharing my private emails with her friends. How did this make you feel, knowing your ex-wife had been reading your private correspondence for months? Violated, angry, but also confused about why she cared so much about my life when she'd made it clear during our marriage that I wasn't important to her. Margaret Walsh's cross-examination was designed to make me look vindictive and obsessive. She asked about my feelings toward Vanessa, my motivations for dating Emily, my response to seeing Vanessa in public. Isn't it true, Mr. Anders, that you began dating Ms. Carter specifically to hurt your ex-wife? I thought about lying, about giving the diplomatic answer, but something about the way Vanessa was sitting at her table, looking smug and confident, made me decide on honesty instead. Miss Walsh, I began dating Emily because she's kind, intelligent, and loyal. Everything my ex-wife wasn't. Did I enjoy the fact that it bothered Vanessa? Absolutely. After months of listening to her tell people I wasn't man enough to keep her interested, it felt good to show her that other women disagreed. So you admit this relationship was motivated by revenge? The relationship was motivated by genuine feelings for Emily. Telling Vanessa about it was motivated by revenge, and I'm not ashamed of that. Judge Williams called a recess, and David immediately pulled me aside. That was either brilliant or catastrophic, he said. Juries like honesty, but judges prefer diplomacy. I'm tired of pretending this isn't personal, David. She violated my privacy for months, she's trying to destroy my reputation, and she's threatening Emily's career. At some point, you have to stop being diplomatic and start fighting back. When court reconvened, Judge Williams had clearly made her decision. I've reviewed the evidence presented by both parties, she began. This case involves serious allegations on both sides, stalking and harassment versus computer fraud and invasion of privacy. She looked directly at Vanessa. Ms. Anders, the evidence clearly shows that you illegally monitored your ex-husband's email accounts for an extended period. This behavior is not only criminal, it undermines your credibility as a victim of harassment. Then she turned to me. Mr. Anders, while your behavior may not rise to the level of stalking, your admitted desire for revenge suggests a concerning mindset. Dating your ex-wife's sister may be legal, but it's also provocative. Judge Williams paused, reviewing her notes. However, the law is clear. A restraining order requires evidence of actual threats or genuinely threatening behavior. Attending public events and dating someone's sister, while perhaps insensitive, is not illegal. Therefore, I'm dismissing the temporary restraining order. However, I'm also referring the evidence of computer fraud to the district attorney's office for potential criminal prosecution. Both parties would be well advised to avoid contact with each other going forward. As we left the courthouse, I felt a mixture of relief and anticipation. I'd won the legal battle, but the war was far from over. Vanessa's reputation had taken a hit, but mine had taken damage too. More importantly, I could see in her eyes as she walked past us that this wasn't the end. If anything, it was just the beginning. What happens now? Emily asked as we stood on the courthouse steps. Now, I said, watching Vanessa and her lawyer disappear into the parking garage. We see how desperate she's willing to get. I had no idea how desperate that would turn out to be.